Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Distance Traveled, a podcast where we signify the lessons learned from the literal and metaphorical journeys of amazing individuals. This is your host, Smith Patel, coming to you with once again Ayman Yusuf, the executive producer, the great Ayman Yusuf. Today, we have with us someone very special, as always, as promised. We have with us Dr. Kyle Quinn. Dr. Kyle Quinn is the assistant professor in the Department of Biomedical Engineering at the University of Arkansas.
I have never met someone so good looking and intelligent, because first of all, you got a great beard, great IQ, and you teach something that is so hard to even fathom. Because it just sounds biomechanical engineering. That's just like full sentence. Like if you add stuff to it, it's just amazing what you can and cannot do. But I don't know a whole lot about Dr. Kyle Quinn, and today that's what we are trying to find out. His distance traveled, metaphorical and literal. And let's get this started. So Dr. Quinn, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Man, that's awesome. So, as I told you, we are just doing this to understand our literal and metaphorical distance and stories that people have here at the university. So tell us about your story. Where are you from? How did you end up in Arkansas?
So I grew up in Wisconsin, kind of the middle of Wisconsin. Kind of a smallish town. Being a scientist really wasn't on my radar growing up, and I don't know if I was always the most motivated student back then, although I was doing quite fine in terms of grades. I think I ended up filling out one of those career survey forms that you have to do. That tells you what maybe you're good at, what you're interested in, and biomedical engineering did rise up to the top. And I'm sure there's some guidance counselors out there that would be thrilled to hear that some of these forms may actually be useful.
Wow! So you ended up in biomedical engineering from a guidance form?
From a form.
Wow, that's amazing. That's just great. So where in Wisconsin are you from?
Menasha, Wisconsin.
Menasha, Wisconsin. So is that very big?
I want to say it's probably like 25,000-30,000 people.
Yeah, that's not fairly.
Yeah, it's just south of Appleton, which has Lawrence University. If anyone's kind of into music, it's a small liberal arts college. But yeah, it's about 45 minutes south of Green Bay.
Okay, that makes sense. A lot of people can relate to Green Bay for sure.
Right.
A big town.
Hour and a half north of Milwaukee.
Oh wow. Okay. So how was it like? And when you were in high school, what was that like? Was high school fun? In a 25,000 town in the middle of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, like our school was probably our class was about 250 graduating seniors. I probably started out as like 300, and then 50 or so dropped out or whatever. It was a public school. Obviously, I did well enough to get into University of Wisconsin-Madison. I was valedictorian.
Oh my God! You did just well enough. Yeah, wow, that's just very humble of you. You did well enough, and you ended up being a valedictorian. Just doing well enough.
Well, it's 250 people, and it's not like nowadays. You have to do a lot of extracurriculars, and you end up having to take all these difficult classes. You just had to maintain a 4.0 and you're going to be fine, So yeah, as a result of that, I had a free trip in terms of tuition was paid for at any school in Wisconsin, and there's a number of satellite schools, or there's about like 13 different UWs. There's UW Milwaukee and UW La Crosse, and but Madison's definitely the flagship school, and so that was where I was really interested in going. I wasn't really ready to step out too much farther from where I lived. I applied to University of Minnesota, University of Wisconsin. I think that was it. Again, I wasn't like the most motivated, ambitious student at the time, and then when I got the full ride to Madison, I didn't really feel like I wanted to fill out any more forms to see if I could get financial aid at Minnesota, so I just went with Wisconsin as a result.
Man, choice. What is it called when you do the order of, cancel it out and multiple choice, man? What's that
You
called?
talking about PEMDAS?
No, when you have like 4 options, they're like, all right, this is not it, this is not it. Okay, I'm gonna go with this one because I canceled it out. That's just great. Okay, that's amazing. So you just filled out a form and that was it. Wow. So
Filled out a form, got a free ride, and
ACT must have played a big role, though, right? GPA can't only be it. So you must have been a stellar student.
Yeah, I don't remember what my ACT score was. Maybe like a 32. or
Man,
something.
that's amazing. I started with 18. Yeah, I know. It was crazy. It was crazy, but that's amazing. So, tell us about your topic of expertise. What do you do now? So, like, wait, never mind. No, let's back up. So, like, you get to Wisconsin-Madison, then you all throughout high school you filled out the form like, all right, it told me to do biomedical engineering. I'm gonna stick with it. Never did you question it?
I mean, I figured it seemed like an interesting enough job.
Okay.
I wasn't thinking about academia as where I would end up. I was looking for something that was going to be more interesting than, I don't know, mechanical engineering.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, my dad was a mechanical engineering major. My mom was a mental health professional. I don't know, you combine those and maybe you get biomedical engineering.
That's a good Venn diagram right there.
And I stuck with biomedical engineering. In my second year, I'd say, there was someone in class that announced that they were doing some internship, and there was going to be an opening to replace them in one of the research labs. So I thought that sounded interesting enough and volunteered. And that was with Karen Kunzelman. She studied mitral valve mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
So she was doing some biaxial testing and a lot of finite element modeling. And so I had a project in one of my sophomore classes. I think it was like the honors level biology or zoology. It's like Bio 151. And so we had to do like an independent project, and so I was sort of linked up with their lab at that point. Did this project where we were doing some mechanical testing on the valves. I sort of was left alone to sort of do this to some extent. I certainly got some training from some grad students. I don't think I realized at the time that they were even grad students.
Right.
I was just more focused on getting my project done, and ended up spending some nights and weekends trying to finish that up, and but really kind of found that I enjoyed it. Used MATLAB to analyze and model the mechanical response, and from talking with some of the faculty that were involved with that project, I think I realized that I'm pretty decent at this this research thing, or the little bit that I had been doing. So
decent, man. I would say excellent. You have your own lab now, so and you didn't stop there, right?
I mean, certainly back then, I'm just a sophomore trying to figure out what I even am interested in and somewhat decent at, and but yeah, I mean, I found that I enjoyed that and was probably pretty good. Not really sure how good, but then I applied to a internship program at the NIH.
Oh,
so
wow.
They have a summer internship program, and that's pretty large, but then there's also this biomedical engineering summer internship program.
Right.
That's like, they bring in like 12 kids from around the country, put them in a hotel for 10 weeks and hook them up with some research project that led by a mentor that's working at the NIH. And I think that was probably pretty inspiring for me, and I think it was at that time I think I realized, hey, I can do this. I'm just as good as these kids from Johns Hopkins and Columbia and Harvard, and so then I think after that I realized that I wanted to go to grad school. I wanted to explore this research thing a little bit a little bit more. I also was not interested in trying to find a job, and let's be honest, it's a lot easier just to say, I'm going to go to grad school.
Yeah.
So.
When all the adults like, so what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Research. Like the college is coming to an end. By the senior year, everybody's like, oh, so what's happening? Everybody in those 4 years, no one's around, and then the fourth year, so what is it going on? So then, how did you end up? After that, you went to Wisconsin, Madison. After that, you went to University of Pennsylvania, right?
Yep.
So how did you end up there?
I had applied to a number of places after that internship. I kind of recalibrated and set my sights a little bit higher in terms of where I was all applying, and applied to a number of top programs, and with still maybe an emphasis more on the Midwest and Northeast area, because it's certainly I was much more familiar with that area of the country, and so I was looking at places like Minnesota and Pittsburgh, and I was interested in biomechanics, and those are two examples of very good biomechanics schools for biomechanics, and Penn had a very strong orthopedics department and a number of people in the bioengineering department that were strong in biomechanics, and so I saw that there were a number of labs that I was interested in. Having gone through the on-site interview there, I felt like there were multiple people that, if it worked out, I'd be happy working in their lab. Seemed like it would be a good relationship, and so that's ultimately why we ended up going there. And I had to convince my girlfriend at the time that that she should
relocate,
jump up and leave Wisconsin as well. And,
how did that go?
It's just definitely a little bit of a stressful time, and probably both of our lives, and and she certainly had to go. She was kind of figuring out what she wanted to do still, and she had to take a little bit of a leap of faith going to Philly without a clear direction. She'd gotten into the program at Penn, but she was looking more at master's programs, and at Penn, master's programs do not make a lot of financial sense.
Okay.
So she ultimately decided she wasn't going to start a master's there. She waited a year, applied to Villanova, just outside of Philly, and there she'd have her tuition covered, stipend, and so it kind of worked out for her. But yeah, it's a little bit of a negotiation.
Yeah, they definitely is.
And we've had to sort of trade off to some extent, in the years that followed. So she ultimately found that she wanted to do a PhD around the time I was finishing up my PhD. So she got into the PhD program at Tufts in biology, and so she got into some other places, but Boston area is great for biomedical optics. That's what I wanted to do. So, and I think Tufts was at the top, or very near the top, if not the of her list. So we ended up going to the Boston area as a result of that, and I think for the next move to Arkansas, I've certainly drove that a bit more, having found a faculty position here, and she's a postdoc in biology right now.
Okay.
But yeah, Arkansas, I had never visited Arkansas before I interviewed.
Hey, neither did I. And I changed countries.
Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily on my radar, but my wife had very fond memories of family vacation to Lake Ouachita back when she was like 8 or 9 or something, and she's like, oh, it's it's very beautiful down there, and she's interested in conservation work, and we knew a couple people down here, so she said, just apply, and we'll figure it out later. And so I applied, but got an interview and got a job offer, and yeah.
And then that brought you here.
That's
Hey,
why I'm
we
here.
are so glad that you did, because I don't know how, because we are already struggling. I don't know if we didn't have you, what we would be doing in biomechanical engineering.
Oh, maybe you're struggling because you have
No,
me.
no, I don't think so. I do not think so, because I don't
Looks
think
like there
I've
might be some disagreement here.
Oh man.
I'll get my talking in a little bit for now.
Oh man. So for all the people listening, fill out those survey forms at the end of high school, because that apparently led Dr. Quinn to
Well, disclaimer: there's not 100% success rate.
right. Yeah, for sure.
Let's slow down.
Oh man. So that's a great story. So you ended up from filling out a form to going to Wisconsin Madison, to University of Pennsylvania and Ivy League, and then Tufts, and then Arkansas. Wow, you had a big leap of faith for sure. So that's amazing. Now you did mention about some of the research that you got hooked on, and that like, man, this is what I want to do. Like, this is inspiring. And so what do you do now? How does you have
Right, so I sort of had a change in research direction between Penn and Tufts. So to be honest, as much as biomechanics was inspiring and got me where I am now, my PhD, I was more interested in biomedical optics. My PhD sort of merged both some advanced optical imaging using polarized light to look at collagen fiber kinematics with more traditional biomechanics and mechanical testing. And but there were conferences, biomechanics conferences that I go to, and I was sort of bored listening to half the talks because I just felt like I had heard the same kind of thing over and over. We're treating a joint with some drug, and we're doing some histology and doing some mechanics, and that's the end of the story. And like, I was more interested in what kind of tools and optical techniques could be used to understand the mechanical response of tissues, and so I wanted to get some formal training in biomedical optics, and so that's why I ultimately went to Tufts. I found a professor, Irene Georgikudi, who was doing some cool work looking at multiphoton microscopy and how it can be used to understand the development of engineered tissues. It was in collaboration with David Kaplan's lab there, where they use silk as a biomaterial, as a scaffold, and they'll see mesenchymal stem cells and induce differentiation, grow these tissues, these engineered tissues, either as disease models or potentially for regenerative medicine applications. And so one of the challenges there is, can we without destroying the sample, monitor its development and see whether this is growing into engineered bone or growing into engineered fat. And that was the whole premise for this project, and so she recently received a bit of funding on that project. So I applied at the right time. I knew that she had recently received funding, and she was using second harmonic generation imaging to characterize the collagen deposition in bone, engineered bone tissue. And
wow.
So I was interested specifically in second harmonic generation because I knew, it was this technique to get 3D images at the microscale of collagen organization, which is way more cool than the polarized light imaging that I was doing at Penn. So
wow. And so how does that change from Tufts to here? What do you do now, and how is that exciting?
So I'm really using a lot of the same tools that I learned while at Tufts, label-free multiphoton microscopy, which is a mouthful, but really we're using the natural sources of contrast that light can provide to understand the biochemistry or the organization of cells and tissues. And so we can take advantage of the fact that our mitochondria have NADH and FAD, these two
Right.
autofluorescent cofactors, and lucky for us, one of them is in a reduced state, one's in an oxidized state. We can take a ratio of those, this optical redox ratio, to assess cell metabolism. At the same time, we're getting collagen organization for free from second harmonic generation, and so for really decades, people have been exploring what these techniques can be used for. A lot of the exploration has been in cancer applications. In Irene's lab, cancer was one of the main ones in addition to these engineered tissues, but I was interested in exploring what other applications were available. I mean, certainly her exploration of engineered tissues was a totally new direction that was really interesting to branch, for someone to be branching out beyond just cancer applications, because that's all the other papers I had read. It was all just cancer. And it gave me some confidence, I think, that there are these other applications out there, and you start reading, there are other papers out there, but it was really 80% cancer, and so then kind of thinking about what are the limitations and capabilities of multiphoton microscopy. It has somewhat limited imaging depth capabilities. There's always this trade-off between resolution and imaging depth. You can, with electron microscopy, you can get these crazy high resolution images, but you're just looking at the surface. And with microscopy, you can get a little bit deeper, and through confocal microscopy or multiphoton microscopy, you can get a little bit deeper, and you've got decent resolution where you can see what's going on inside cells, pick out individual collagen fibers or actin within the cells, and then you get the larger and larger length scales where, like CT, you don't have the resolution to look at individual cells, but you can go through the whole body. So multiphoton microscopy kind of sits in this sweet spot where you get about a 0.5 millimeter in terms of imaging depth to a millimeter. Some people are pushing that, but you then also get this great resolution where you can pick out individual cells. And so thinking about how do we apply that to the body? I mean, skin is naturally an easier application than a lot for this, and a little bit more natural, and that's why a lot of people were focusing on melanoma. So being able to also distinguish different skin cancers or detect skin cancer was historically a big direction, but there are other problems with skin other than cancer, and that's where I wanted to explore this application of wound healing, where we have a major problem in the US and really everywhere, where you can have non-healing wounds for a number of different reasons. Diabetic foot ulcers are a major problem, but a number of cardiovascular issues can cause delays. Certainly infection can cause delays, and it's not always clear what the underlying problem is, and it's not always clear what the best course of action to take is in the clinic, because there's not a lot of tools that are being applied to that field. So we're exploring how we can use multiphoton microscopy to detect delayed or impaired healing and potentially guide treatment in the future. And through that process, we've also been exploring how age can play a role. So older people don't heal as well. The healing is slower. The deposition of new matrix is slower. Everything's a little bit slower. And so we got a large grant from the NIH. I got pretty lucky, first submission to get one of these.
Congratulations, you got the
grants.
career grant, right?
And then I got a career grant that kind of built off of that R01, the NIH R01 grant. So
Okay.
the R01 grant was more picking out how age-related changes can affect wound healing, and how we can possibly distinguish between age-related delays and the effects of diabetes. And from there, started asking questions about how age-related changes in our mitochondria that we know should be occurring, and we know are occurring, how those might be detectable with our imaging techniques. So, basically, when you have dysfunction with age, that really can lead to a host of degenerative diseases, and we know that there's increased internal stresses on our cells and mitochondria with age. We have reduced efficiency and suboptimal organization, and we have some tools at our disposal in this lab to explore these things and measure these things in a very quantitative way, where maybe we can detect and understand these differences between biological age and chronological age.
I see.
And we'll be doing some interesting work where we can follow out in a mammal from its at a very young age through its whole lifespan as it gets old, and see how its cells evolve, how the metabolism of those cells change over time, and so I'm hoping that we'll get a better picture of these different stresses and problems that arise with age that we know occur in the mitochondria. If we can monitor that and detect that non-invasively, I think that can be very helpful for a broader range of issues beyond just wound healing.
So basically, you're using, in layman terms, using very sophisticated cameras to find out how wound healing can be expedited, or what's slowing it down. Is it biological age or chronological age?
Well, I mean, we know that increasing age slows it down.
Right.
Yeah, and can we detect? Are the problems related to this increasing age of our cells and tissues, or is it related to some other things such as diabetes or cardiovascular disease? Can we distinguish among those? Because then we can personalize the treatment that the person with this wound would have. But really, as much as we've been going down this road of wound healing, I think there's a lot of other applications that I'm interested in exploring, and there's a lot of collaborative work that we're doing with Dr. Iyer's lab, looking at mitochondrial disorders. We're working with the Rajaram lab to assess some of these unanswered questions in cancer research, and working with Dr. Balachandran to explore how we can use this to understand the development of aortic valve disease as well. So,
right.
So I think there's still a lot of different applications that remain unexplored.
I really just hope it's better than your collaborative work
Exactly.
with Dr. Muldoon.
Dr. Muldoon.
On the
Yeah,
test.
so for a little background to the people listening, we just had a test yesterday in biomechanical engineering, and we had a question in instrumentation which we imagined the horse to be a perfect sphere, and we had to find out the temperature after it was put into a pool. And Dr. Quinn took the same problem. We're like, all right, enough horsing around. Let's find the work done. I'm like, okay, part one, good. Force applied, work done. And then the second problem, now find the net work done. I was like, oh my God, dude. I don't know what that means.
You know what's funny? I asked Muldoon, Dr. Muldoon, after the test why he chose, because it was a picture of BoJack Horseman.
Okay.
So I just asked him. He's like, I was just watching it that morning and I got inspired. And I was like, did you also just get inspired to hurt us? Is that the inspiration for the test?
Oh man, that's crazy though. Okay, anyway, let's moving on though.
Let's move on to
doing what you have done all these years. I bet you have had to fail, because we are over here constantly failing, and I'm questioning, like, oh my God, like, what am I gonna do? I don't know what's going on. Did you ever fail in any of these times, and what did you do after that? Did you ever get a D in a test?
Yeah, I mean, I got a D on. It was my sophomore year on a test. That was the first time I got a D. So yeah, I'm trying to spread that love to everyone.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah, no, that was. It was biology.
Cell biology?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I had not figured out at that point that you had to study in
college.
In college, that was
You know, funny enough, my first D on a test was thanks to Dr. Quinn.
No, I relate with Dr. Quinn, dude. Cell Bio was the one that, like, you know, I've been a straight A student, was a valedictorian of my class, but then, no, Cell Bio comes along like, no, my friend. It stops right here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had to turn it around and spent a bit more time on that class after that D. Ended up getting a B in the class.
Okay.
But yeah, that was definitely a wake-up call, because up to that point, I mean, I wasn't looking to get a 4.0 while at Wisconsin either. I was more interested in enjoying life, and you know, it was fine when you're a freshman.
Right.
But yeah, once I got into these classes that required memorization, I soon realized it wasn't gonna work out just winging it a couple hours before.
Wow. So how did you deal with that? You know, like after that, have you been consistently, you know, like you were like a great student?
I mean, I think anything that required a lot of memorization, I was never a huge fan of, and I continued to get a smattering of B's in my college career.
So you obviously went to UPenn for grad school. So it's not, you don't necessarily need like a 4.0. You
to
know,
get in, yeah. For all the people listening, you know.
Because that's something that I'm worried about.
Exactly.
I'm thinking about going to grad school right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just for like those interested in grad school, you know, you don't have to be perfect.
Don't freak out about my test. Yeah. Don't be emailing me
I
about
don't-
that.
Believe me, right now, I'm thinking about the weekend, Dr. Quinn. You can't torture me for at least, what is it, Tuesday we got class? That's if I show up to
Oh
class.
no. So that is very, and thank you for that. Like, you know, like people need to hear that. Like, it's okay. You're
You
not.
should have seen me. I was, like, 10 minutes ago, I was worried because he's talking about he's valedictorian of his class, you know.
Right.
And I'm
like,
thinking,
man, I'm gonna fail.
Exactly. I'm thinking,
Right. I'm not
oh,
gonna
great.
amount to anything.
Let's move on to the fun ones, just because
Yeah, we
we're
don't have-
already halfway through.
Right.
And I want to get Dr. Quinn out in like 45.
Okay, cool. All right. Who inspired? I want to know this one because, like, you know, like someone who's this good looking, has a perfect beard, such good hair, like, and is smart. When do you, man? Who inspires you? Like, we look up to you. I personally look up to you. Who do you look up to?
I mean, I certainly look up to my mentors through this this process. I mean, you know, certainly Beth Winkelstein was a huge influence. That at Penn, she was my advisor, and you know, I think she expected more out of me than I expected of myself, and you know, that can be a little bit of a challenge as you grow up, because you know. Grad school's a lot of just learning to grow up a little bit and start to treat this as a job. I mean, you know, as an undergrad, I certainly was not treating my coursework like a job. I wasn't putting in that much time, and so I learned to work harder at Penn, and it was in addition to getting some fantastic training in terms of how do I think about, communicate, research, and you know, she was very instrumental there, and I still try to connect with her at least, you know, once a year at BMES or some other conference, and you know, so she was very influential, I think, in terms of developing and molding me as a scientist, and certainly Irene Georgiouti, my mentor at Tufts, was incredibly important and influential in that. I mean, I'm doing very similar work to frankly what she does, just different applications, and you know, I certainly owe this research direction that I'm pursuing to the training that I got in her lab, and you know, there are certainly colleagues and students that have been inspiring. Certainly my wife has been as well. I mean, yeah, she kind of goes through a similar process, figuring out what she's passionate about in academia, and yeah, I mean, I certainly number of very influential women in my life.
That's great. That's amazing. So all right, we'll move on to the funny ones. This should be a little lighthearted. You don't have to think as deep, you know. So what's your favorite sports team? You like sports?
As someone from Wisconsin, the Green Bay Packers.
Oh man. Okay.
I don't know if we have any like Cowboys fans here. Or...
No, I love the Hogs, the Heartbreak Hogs.
You're also a Patriots fan, so
Man, oh, I love the Patriots.
we have a common enemy.
No, do not. Patriots. People just hate on Patriots because they're great at what they do.
All I'm saying is
Sixth win, man.
They're great at cheating.
I know.
I mean, Deflategate.
Oh my
Robert
God!
Kraft,
Let's not get
cheating
started.
on his wife. I mean, there's just it's
There's
culture.
plenty of fodder there.
It's culture.
Oh man. So what's your weekend look like? Being so busy. What do you do? What do you do for fun?
My weekends can be quite variable. I spend a lot of time making exams for my students that I know they'll enjoy.
Do you have fun doing that? Is that what you're saying?
No, I actually didn't do that on the weekend. I had to cram that in this week. But
were you just on the toilet and you're just like
No man.
because one of the problems was the toilet paper.
Oh, the toilet paper. Oh yeah.
Is that how you like function on a daily basis? You just look at something and you're like, I could make it. Damn. Like, here's a bowl of cereal. A piece of cereal is just rotating.
I mean, there are times in my life that's crossed my mind. Like you come to a glass door, you push on it, and you realize you're pushing on the wrong end, and it doesn't open. It's all moments there, right? That's the reason it's not opening, is because you pushed your moment arm's too small. And so yeah, there's been a few times where I thought, that's a good biomechanics problem.
Oh man, nice.
Stop it! Don't even think about it. If I say glass door on the final, I'm
Oh man.
again I'm
I
staring.
hope
you
not.
down.
I hope not.
But again, to the question, what do you do for fun on the weekends? When you're not torturing students.
Yeah, when I'm not working, and to be honest, a life in academia as a professor, I mean, time is a major limitation. It's a limiting factor. I end up replying to emails that I haven't had time to reply to, and just playing catch up basically over the weekend. But I do set aside some time. I mean, work-life balance is something that is important and is a challenge, unless you just kind of set some hard limits and say, I'm not going to check my phone, I'm not going to check my email, I'm not going to do anything related to work. It will engulf you. So I mean, I definitely spend a bit of time with my wife cooking.
You like cooking?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not too bad at...
Is there anything this man can't do?
Oh my God! Looking great. Got a degree from you, man. Cooks. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
No, I like mixing drinks.
Okay.
I heard that I'm pretty good at that.
Okay.
Coming from Wisconsin, I like to make an old fashioned. We do a bit of gardening. So we bought a house a couple of years ago that has this incredible perennial garden. We don't really have grass, just a little bit in the back, and there's a pond with a bunch of different fish in it.
Wow.
So we end up spending a little bit of time just trying to maintain that. It's kind of like around the year there's stuff to be doing there, cutting things back and adding compost and whatnot. So that ends up spending a little bit more of our free time than maybe we anticipated a couple of years ago. But I mean, there are places that I wouldn't want to tell you about that I go to.
Yeah, no, please. We do not want to put that out there.
I'm guessing it's on Dixon Street.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say where. Maybe I've seen Dr. Quinn on Dixon Street. You may never know. Are there any video games that you like to play? Any?
You into video games?
I have. That's something that I've sort of lost touch with over the years. I mean, when I was in college, it was all about Counter-Strike.
To you?
Wait, you used to play Counter-Strike?
Back in the day, yeah.
Really, 1.6? Or
I don't even remember.
was it just called Counter-Strike back then?
He's not that old back then. What do you mean?
No, Counter-Strike was
Okay.
like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
first-
I mean, I was playing, back in like, I don't know, it would have been like
Oh,
2002.
Nice.
Oh, that's like original.
Nice.
That's like,
Nice.
That's original.
All right. What's your favorite go-to order in any restaurant? Like your favorite restaurant you go to. What's your you got to get that?
The KFC at Leverett Lounge is pretty good. That's a Korean fried chicken.
Oh, the one next
Korean
to,
fried chicken?
The one next to the
Not Kentucky Fried Chicken.
washer place.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
really?
What is that?
Korean fried chicken? It's probably Korean barbecue sauce.
Yeah. I
tossed
mean,
with
it's nothing like KFC. But yeah, it's that's definitely up there.
we gotta write
Man,
this
yeah, we
down.
gotta write this down. We were gonna check this out. Okay, great. Okay, so this is just a funny thing that I want to know. That do you ever you just talked about maintaining work-life balance? Did your wife ever tell you you should have done that? Even after you've done it, so you would have done that better. Here's how. Do you ever run into that? Normal people problems?
Oh, you're not talking about my research then?
No.
No.
just like your wife telling you, take out the trash. And
Yeah.
You're like,
Oh, there's plenty of things that I'm terrible at doing. I mean, she definitely would say that I do not do the dishes as much as I should, and that's quite fair. I hate doing it. I was terrible in college. I had a disgusting apartment because I had disgusting roommates, and we weren't gonna clean anything.
Man.
let me handle these last two.
Okay.
Let me handle these last two. So the first one, what's your favorite class to teach?
Ooh.
And just in general, what's your favorite class?
I think my favorite class is my senior elective class. Sorry, it's
Did
not
you
my.
betray Dr. Quinn?
I try to make it as entertaining as possible for
Yeah.
Dr. Quinn. But
Okay.
But no, so I have a class that's biomedical data and image analysis. That it's more MATLAB. I'm probably more abusive to the students.
here I was thinking I was going to take that class, and then you just...
No, it's great if you want to learn MATLAB properly.
Okay.
We spend a lot of time in the lab. You guys are on the computers coding. That can be a very frustrating thing. And the more in-class work that you're doing, where you have people that can help out, and I can help troubleshoot, the less frustrating that is, I think. And so it's really sort of giving people this base knowledge to be able to do some standard image processing and analysis techniques that anyone thinking about grad school really should consider taking it.
Okay, so running short on time, do you have any hidden talents that you could show us, even though this is a podcast, we would like to see?
I'm really not that talented. No, I do not have any hidden talents.
He just gave it away. He makes cocktails, mocktails.
Oh, mocktail. What do you use in your beard? That's the last question. Is that mostly for me? Yes. What do you use in your beard?
I do not. I don't really use anything. I don't know. My wife would say that I am not grooming it at all, and that I look like a homeless person. But, yeah, I mean, there's no product.
No product. Just naturally, just beautiful.
Just
nice. Wow.
Yeah, it's all
right,
natural.
cool. We're good. We can just turn it off. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I know how busy you are being a professor, and we just talked about your work life.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate you. And for all the students who might want to reach out to you, might want to learn more about your research, you are definitely recruiting, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm always looking for talented, motivated students.
Okay.
Well,
okay. Thank you
why
so much.
That's why he turned me away.
So everybody listening, please don't feel any fear to reach out to Dr. Quinn. Great guy, wonderful guy, also very good to look at. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no.
Thank you so much, Dr. Quinn. All right,
Thank you.
check it out.
Yeah, Smith Patel and Yusuf, Distance Travel. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.